Welcome to the True Crime Never Sleeps podcast. I'm your host, Larry Lease, and on today's episode of Shit Out of Luck, we dive into Samuel Little and how one of America's most prolific serial killers in U.S. history was finally captured. But first, we'd like to thank our sponsor, Poddex, for sponsoring this episode. Check them out today at poddex.com. Use the promo code Larry21 for 10% off your order. And let's dive right into it, shall we? Dubbed the most prolific serial killer in U.S. history by the FBI, Samuel Little confessed to murdering 93 women over a span of almost 4 decades, and he has been successfully matched to 50 cases, according to the agency. As shocking as his murders are, what's even more astounding is how Little stayed a free man for so long. Prior to his capture, the serial killer amassed almost 100 arrests on charges including rape, robbery, and assault. But he did not spend more than a total of 10 years in prison. How did Little go undetected by law enforcement, and how was he finally caught? Little often preyed on drug users, promising them money or narcotics before he killed them. He also targeted sex workers, taking advantage of the fact that law enforcement often brushed off their assault claims. Layla, a sex worker trying to support her 3 children, later testified that she met Little in November 1981. After getting in his car, Little beat and choked her so viciously that blood was streaming from her eyes. Although she fought back and escaped, she never filed a police report, and authorities never came to take her statement when she was admitted to the hospital. She told the Los Angeles Times on the witness stand, "They don't care nothing about no black prostitute." After selecting his victims, Little would try to knock them out with a punch and then strangle them to death. Because the women often displayed no physical injuries or their bodies were so badly decomposed, it was difficult to determine that their deaths were homicides. With no stab marks or bullet wounds, many of these deaths were not classified as homicides, but attributed to drug overdoses, accidents, or natural cause. Samuel Little was a transient, crisscrossing across the country throughout his adult life and working temporary jobs, which made him hard to track and his killing pattern tough to recognize. Though he racked up numerous arrests on a variety of petty offenses, police sometimes dropped the charges against him and just hoped he would leave their jurisdiction. He was also careful to limit his hunting grounds to dilapidated high-crime areas and places that seldom received the same attention and protection as their more affluent neighbors. Quote, "I'm not going to go over there in the white neighborhood and pick out a little young teenage girl," he once told investigators. "I ain't going to go over there and pick out a housewife. That's the kind you get busted for." Little later relocated to California, where he was arrested for 2 assaults and later tried for attempted murder. After the jury deadlocked, he pleaded guilty to assault and false imprisonment and served 2.5 years in prison. As a result of his conviction, Little submitted a DNA sample that was entered into the FBI's Violent Criminal Apprehension Program. Little killed numerous women around Los Angeles following his release, including 3 whose deaths were ultimately see him brought to justice. They were Carol Alford, killed in 1987, and Audrey Nelson and Guadalupe Podaca, both killed in 1989. All 3 tested positive for cocaine during their autopsies. They were women whom law enforcement at the time were unlikely to take seriously. It was not until 2012 when LAPD detectives discovered genetic information gathered from the Nelson and Podaca murders were a match to Little's DNA, that he was connected to the slangs. Detective tracked Little through his Social Security payments to Louisville, Kentucky, and the U.S. Marshals Fugitive Task Force found and arrested Little at a homeless shelter. He was then extradited to California on an outstanding 2007 narcotics warrant. That November, Little's DNA was matched to evidence from the Alford killing. He was charged with 3 counts of murder and special circumstances for multiple murder. Little was found guilty of the murders in September 2014. He was subsequently sentenced to 3 consecutive life terms without the possibility of parole. Authorities suspect Little of additional murders across the country, but he remained uncooperative until 2018, eventually admitting involvement in 93 murders from 1970 to 2005. Over the following year, Little pleaded guilty to murdering 5 women in Texas and Ohio, resulting in additional life sentences. The FBI has since released a timeline of Little's life and crimes, and he continues to detail his murders, even drawing victim sketches in the hopes of identifying them. Before we go, please hit that thumbs up button, hit the subscribe button if you want to watch more of our content. And if you want to support the show, you can buy us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/tcnews. Your support helps the channel grow. We can bring in new writers and hosts, pay them, create new shows, and create even more content. Thank you so much for watching and listening. And as always, we'd like to thank Poddex for sponsoring this episode. Check them out today at poddex.com and use the promo code Larry21 for 10% off your order. Thanks so much for watching and listening. We will see you next time.